What's going on? It's your boy Bowie here. And once again, this video is not about Mortal Kombat or Mortal Kombat 1. This video is about J.Cole and the Kendrick Lamar beef and how, once again, J.Cole has single-handedly made hip-hop better and masculinity better through his apology to Kendrick Lamar. Now, I'm going to start with this outright. I'm a fan of both men. I have virtually all of their albums. I don't have Good Kid, Mad City from Kendrick, but I have all of his other works afterwards, all of which I consider to be classics. I have Born Sinner from J. Cole and everything he's dropped since then. I consider virtually all of those joints to be classics, with the exclusion of Born Sinner. Though that shit got some heaters on that bitch, so, you know. So, I'm a fan of both guys. I appreciate what they bring to the culture. Both of them are extremely talented lyricists and artists. Kendrick displays his artistry through his poetry, through his delivery, through his subject matter and all that. J. Cole shows his artistry through his lyricism, through his production, and through his subject matter. So, people are divided on who takes precedence. I think most people would consider Kendrick Lamar to be a better rapper than J. Cole. And at one time I had said the same thing, but now I think, from a pen perspective, I think J. Cole has demonstrated that he has the edge recently. I know that's weird for many people to hear that being stated, but I think it's the truth nonetheless. J. Cole has been out here penning the game down. You need look no further than his guest verses on other people's albums. You need also look no further than his latest EP, Might Delete Later, where he shows exactly why he's one of the most elite MCs in the game. But that doesn't mean Kendrick ain't doing shit. Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is a magnificent piece of hip hop artwork that I think a lot of people are sleeping on because they're not ready for it yet. They're behind. And once again, Kendrick is ahead of the game. As Cole has been as well. Because I think Folding Clothes from J. Cole is one of the very best hip hop records that's ever existed in the past 10 years. Possibly past 20 years. You know what I'm saying? Because it tells the story of, somebody's love and dedication for their partner just to make their life easier. Just because, they mean something special to you. And I haven't heard a hip hop record before or since then. Hey, babe. I'm recording a video and stuff. You want to join your boy? Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't heard a hip hop record before or since then. And I thought when that record came out that he was a gift to hip hop for that reason. Because in a world full of Molly, fucking hoes, pushing drugs, trapping, and all the debaucherous things that come with hip hop, J. Cole is a breath of fresh air. Matter of fact, a tank full of it. And so was Kendrick, But basically, Kendrick got on a record with Future and threw shots at both threw shots at J.Cole and Drake on a record. And called Like That. Almost forgot the title of the record, but I remembered. Now, the majority of that diss was for Drake. It was not for Cole to begin with, but J. Cole caught some strays because the two of them were featured on a record called Firstperson Shooter together. And I don't remember the details of Firstperson Shooter, but I know that once again J. Cole murdered somebody on their own beat. And Kendrick didn't like that, And so after Kendrick released the verse for Like That, the entire world seemingly egged J. Cole and Drake to respond, as is often the tradition in hip hop. When somebody throws a shot at you on a record, you throw a shot back, right? That's what hip hop calls you to do. But here's the thing. J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar respect each other's artistry. And, J. Cole and Kendrick mean a hell of a lot more to hip hop culture today than previous Titans did in their hay. I'll go ahead and say it. See, people compare this to Jay-Z versus Nas. And Jay-Z and Nas are both icons. There's no arguing that. But Jay-Z and Nas were in hip hop at the same time as a whole bunch of other icons. You know what I'm saying? People like DMX, people like B.I.G., people like Eminem, people like Snoop Dogg. Not to mention countless others whose name I didn't say so far. You know what I'm saying? And so if you had those two beefing, it doesn't have the same weight because yes, it's two titans battling, but there's still a whole bunch of other titans left in the industry. You know what I'm saying? But with Kendrick and Cole, that's pretty much very different. See, aside from Drake, Kendrick and Cole don't really have a mainstream contemporary that is on their level. Everyone else that's that's in the game at the same time as they are is a tier or several tiers below them. And it doesn't matter who you pick. They're a tier below them either in artistry, lyricism, commercial success, fanfare, or all. You know what I'm saying? And it's not close. In terms of where hip hop is right now, it's the ladies leading the pack on the women's side, you know what I'm saying? And then on the male side, it's the big three, pretty much. And then some icons that are still doing their thing like Nas and Eminem, right? But that's about it. Everybody else is either underground, independent, or, that's just about it, pretty much, right? So Kendrick and Cole don't really have a lot of, equivalent contemporaries like Nas and Jay-Z did. You know what I'm saying? So it matters a hell of a lot more for the two of them to be at odds with each other. It matters way more. Because if you have these two titans battling back and forth and one of them gets dissed into oblivion and loses their career, that's a far greater blow to hip hop overall. Because I don't want to imagine hip hop without Kendrick or Cole. Not this version. You know what I'm saying? You don't have people that really give a shit about lyricism that are on a mainstream level. I mean, you have, groups and individuals that are still pushing this lyrical envelope forward, like Coast Contra and stuff like that. I love them, by the way. But your average fan does not know who Coast Contra is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to really love this culture to be into groups like them. Not because their music is bad, but because they're not mainstream. Not yet, anyway. Give it some time. But, so when I seen that Kendrick had dissed Cole, I'm like, I don't know. I don't like this. The average hip hop listener has been waiting for a chance to see a good old beef between two people, because beef is entertaining. It often leads to some really good music, some really potent disses and stuff like that, but ultimately a lot of beefs result in one party being ostracized from the culture, never to be seen or heard from again. Ask MGK, ask Ja Rule, ask Lil Flip. You know what I'm saying? It's very rare that two people engage in a serious hip hop beef and both parties are able to continue and do great things in their career afterwards. It's very rare for that to happen. You know what I'm saying? And so the idea that one of them could diss the other one into obscurity didn't sit well with me. And it never sat well with me. I didn't like it from the jump. And Drake basically pretty much decided he's not going to reply. Which is on character for Drake, because Drake has already ducked direct shots from Common and Pusha T before him, as well as direct shots from Kendrick himself. You know what I'm saying? To my knowledge, Drake has not responded to the story of Adidon to this day. And that diss is damn near 10 years old now. You know what I'm saying? But I say all of that to say that when J. Cole released his 7-minute drill diss record, at first I'm like, oh shit, he actually fucking did it. He dissed Kendrick. But then when I heard the diss, I was like, ooh, okay, Cole, I see what you're doing there. You know what I'm saying? But in that diss, he said basically some things that didn't make a whole lot of sense. He claimed To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick's second, major album, was gassed up. When To Pimp a Butterfly is probably one of the greatest projects to be released in the past decade. I mean, it was much more than just a regular hip hop album. It was a love letter to black music and black people. Not just sonically, but lyrically and everything. It's phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? Pretty much everything that Kendrick has touched has been a work of art. And so for Cole to go at Kendrick for his art and pretty much take the Jay-Z route and saying your albums have been trash as of late, and the ones that aren't trash have been overhyped, that didn't rub me the right way. You know what I'm saying? Didn't rub me the right way at all. But I was happy to see that Cole didn't back down like Drake had done. Right? But then I looked at the discourse around this particular diss. And I saw a lot of tribalism. I saw a lot of J. Cole fans saying stupid shit towards Kendrick fans. I saw Kendrick fans saying a lot of stupid shit towards Cole fans, calling each other soft, you know, saying that they are overrated. And then I seen people calling into question both of these guys' albums when all both of them have ever tried to do is push the culture forward. And I realized something that was pretty apparent. This beef is not good for hip hop. Because the vast majority of people that enjoy Kendrick, at the very least, they respect J. Cole and vice versa. And there's a lot of overlap between those two fan bases. And it's very easy to see why. You know, both of these guys are purposely conscious dudes who are respected lyricists and artists who put a lot of time and thought into their lyrics and their albums. J. Cole wrote a whole album for his friend that was slain, written to his daughter, and portrayed his life experiences in that album. Also celebrating the birth of his child in said album. You know what I'm saying? Like, who does that? If that doesn't push the culture forward, I don't know what does. You know what I'm saying? But this beef was bringing out the worst in hip hop fans and taking a relatively evenly sided fan base and splitting them up. Considering that we're Mortal Kombat players, and if you're watching this, you're probably, you know, either a subscriber of mine or someone that regularly watches my videos, you know that the Mortal Kombat community is divided as a motherfucker. And hip hop's always been like that too. And so having some semblance of unity is much appreciated and utterly necessary, because the fact of the matter is, it's very important for artists like Kendrick and Cole to be able to create the music that they create without feeling pressure to cave into tribalistic urges. But that's exactly what happened with J. Cole, because seemingly the entire hip hop universe was egging him to do this. Not necessarily other rappers, but hip hop fans were egging and itching and waiting for him to do this, waiting for him to reply venomously to Kendrick Lamar. And why? For their own entertainment, to satisfy their carnal urges to see destruction. You know? Now, I get it. This is hip hop. When somebody disses you, you diss their ass back. And you show them that you're better on the mic. That's the general rules of hip hop. If you don't do that, you forfeited the beef. Right? I get that. And I understand that. But though you don't have to have beef with people in order to diss them on a record, the best diss records happen because of real issues stemming between the two parties. You know, I mentioned Ja Rule before. One of the reasons that the Ja Rule and 50 beef was so compelling was because there was real history between them. This was not some fabricated rap beef that was done for the cameras. These guys had fought before. 50 got stabbed. You know what I'm saying? 50 got shot by someone that, funneled money into Ja Rule's record label, or Ja Rule's manager's record label, I should say, Irv Gotti. Like, there was real history there. And so the vast majority of hip hop records stem from two parties genuinely disliking each other. And those two dudes don't fit in that category. Even on Kendrick's latest album, he shouted Cole out in a manner of sorts, trying to tell fans, hey, these people are not your saviors. I am not your savior. Cole is not your savior. LeBron James is not your savior. You know what I'm saying? And that's a beautiful thing. J.Cole was the one that sort of funneled Kendrick Lamar to go to Aftermath. I didn't know this, but J.Cole had even produced for Kendrick on his first EP before, maybe it was on Section 80. He produced a record for Kendrick, and they rapped on songs together, and Kendrick was famously on Born Sinner, on Forbidden Fruit, which is a dope-ass record, by the way. They've been featured on each other's things quite a bit. They have respect for each other, right? So they're not at odds with each other, right? But their fan bases started to become at odds, right? So beef typically stems from real issues. The other thing about beef is that when you beef with somebody, you gotta say true shit. The most effective disses are the ones that people can observe. Take for instance, Nicki Minaj and Megan the Stallion, I should say. One of the reasons why Meg's diss towards Nicki was highly effective was because not only was it clever, it was based in fact. She said, these hoes ain't scared of me, they scared of Megan's Law, or something to that effect. Megan's Law refers to the legislation against pedophiles, which is pertinent to Nicki Minaj because both her brother and her husband have been credibly accused of being sex offenders. And so she used real life legislation to say a slick line about Nicki Minaj supporting predators, which is true because Nicki Minaj has come out and defended publicly both her brother and her husband. That's why that line stings, because it's based in truth. It's also the reason why Nicki's lines fall flat. What did she have to say back against Megan? Oh, you're a hoe. A, you can't confirm that. Two, even if you could, who gives a shit? Her gimmick is being sexified on purpose, so why would that even matter? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, point is, when you're beefing with somebody, you got to say some true shit. Otherwise, it falls flat. So, by Cole sitting here questioning Kendrick's discography and saying things that he didn't believe just to satiate the bloodthirsty crowd, he compromises principles. And this leads to the apology. See, J. Cole apologized to Kendrick for doing what he said was one of the wackest things he's ever done, which is diss Kendrick Lamar. Not because he's apologizing for responding and doing what hip hop calls people to do, Not because he's afraid of what Kendrick will do to him on the microphone, because he released the diss. Not because he can't measure up to Kendrick Lamar lyrically. The past 5 years have demonstrated that J. Cole is probably the dopest rapper in the game right now. Dopest non-classic rapper in the game, because obviously to me that title goes to Eminem, because Eminem's raps are so complex and intricate that you can't even recite them shits. You know what I'm saying? Like, he raps too good, and nobody's matching him. Not Kendrick or Cole, but still, Eminem is also, you know, he's an OG by this point of the game, so his pen game should be super strong, right? But in terms of artists that came out in the mid 2000s, it's Kendrick and Cole and nobody else, pretty much, mainstream wise. But the point of what I'm saying is all this rhetoric around J. Cole being afraid, or J. Cole being soft, or J. Cole being light-skinned, or being emotional, or being, you know, all that shit is noise. It's noise. It's noise from people that were pissed off that their wet dream was abruptly ended by maturity and clairvoyance. See, the title of this video is that J. Cole has made hip-hop better and masculinity better. The reason why I say that is because men don't apologize, generally speaking. Especially men in the public eye. When a man does something wrong in the public eye, or he does something that's against his principles, or does something that doesn't, you know, agree with what he stands on, or he does something that doesn't align with what he's purported to stand on, the vast majority of dudes double down. They try to deflect, they try to defend, they try to deny, they try to distract. They do anything except deal directly with their derelict behavior, their derelict deed, if you will. J. Cole didn't do that. J. Cole said, I was wrong. I was pressured into doing this by seemingly the entire world. And I did a thing that I didn't feel right about, and I couldn't sleep after having done this. So not only is he saying, hey, I did something I'm not proud of and something I don't agree with, he's telling you the effect that it had. The man said he couldn't sleep because of this. Precisely because he saw the negative effect that his influence was having. Oh, that was so fucking dope. Wow. So in other words, he was misusing his influence, to quote Kendrick Lamar. You know what I mean? And so he did the responsible thing. He did the honorable and righteous thing, and he apologized. Not only that, he corrected the narrative. He said Kendrick Lamar's discography is immaculate, pretty much, including To Pimp a Butterfly. He said that he had to find angles in order to diss the man, which goes against his principles of integrity and honesty, which are essential for being the kind of artist that both J. Cole and Kendrick happen to be. And that was a big theme on Might Delete Later, actually. You know, J. Cole poking fun at himself for saying things that he knows are not true, and poking fun at rappers for saying things in their records that they don't do, and lying. Or trying to distort the narrative between what they're doing and what they're saying they're doing. That was a big theme on this album. And he fell victim to it. Why? Because of peer pressure from mostly male hip hop fans that wanted to see a bloodbath. But the point of what I was saying is, most men in the public sphere do not apologize when they do shit that's wrong. And if they do apologize, it's forced after the fact. See, it's easy to get somebody like Joe Biden to apologize for saying stupid shit like, if you have to decide between me and Trump, then you're not black. Joe Biden will easily apologize for some shit like that, because he sees now that it was in bad taste. But he didn't see it when he was saying it. And it wasn't just that it was in poor taste. The vernacular that he was using is also in even poorer taste. Those kind of apologies are easy when it's clear that your words were not received well. But in the case of J. Cole, reactions were mixed. A lot of people said that the diss didn't feel authentic to him, but there was a lot of discourse around Kendrick's discography being overrated somehow. They were going with Cole's narrative. A narrative he didn't himself believe in. And motherfuckers was going for it. You know what I'm saying? And so when he sees the negative effect, he didn't wait. He didn't wait years and years later. He didn't wait until Kendrick started seeing album sales losses, and he didn't wait for Kendrick to start getting boos at his concerts and shit. He got out ahead of it. Because something in his spirit made him say, this is not right. And that's not a phrase that I hear enough men saying enough. When most men do wrong, it's typically, or avoid doing wrong or apologize for doing wrong, it's typically because of the consequences they receive, or because of the consequences they know that they receive. They very rarely use emotional justifications like, that doesn't align with what my spirit feels. This is not the kind of person I want to be. This is not the kind of man I want to be. You don't see that used as a justification enough. Wow, I tried to do a fatal blow there. That was trash. Oh, wow. That was interesting. Oh, he got me here. What the hell? What's he gonna do? Ooh, damn, that was good. We don't see that. And you know why we don't see it? Because as men, we're taught that our emotions don't mean shit. Our emotions are there to be buried. They're there for us possibly to feel and experience, but never to show. And even if we do feel them, we're supposed to hide them away because that's feminine to do that. It's feminine to feel afraid, jealous, anxious, bitter, though it's becoming increasingly less feminine for men to be bitter. Hence the whole motherfucking passport bros and the, you know, the general red pill community. Anyway, but just using moral/emotional arguments for one's own self-behavior is not something that enough men do in practice for real. And somebody like me really appreciates this so much. It's part of the reason why I do this channel. Because one of the pillars of this particular channel is to tell the objective truth, no matter what it might say. You know, when I talk about this game, Mortal Kombat 1, I tell the whole truth, the good and the bad. A lot of people have been focusing on the bad so far, so I'm focusing on the good, while not shying away from the negative aspects of this game, of which there are plenty. But there's also plenty of good that people are, you know, either, you know, deliberately or, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Accidentally ignoring, if you will. And so I have a set of principles that I believe in. And these are not just principles that I'm applying because I'm trying to be cool on YouTube. I live these principles for real. I try to be objectively true in real life too, because I teach math. And one of the pillars of mathematics is that it's objective. Math doesn't care about people's political alignment or religious alignment. Math doesn't give a shit. The numbers say what they say. The answers are what they are. And if you can't handle that, if you don't like that, too bad. You know what I'm saying? And so I believe that for real. And that fundamental principle guides everything I do, everything that I say. And so I'm using that principle to try to look at this J. Cole and Kendrick thing objectively and say that J. Cole apologizing to Kendrick is one of the very best things that we have seen in hip hop. Even though it seems to go against the grain, even though it seems to have broken the collective brains of the vast majority of male hip hop fans who think that they're entitled to see two people go to war over some nebulous idea of the crown. Even if it's not for the good of the culture. It's good that Cole did this. It's going to be a moment that changes the landscape of the game from here forward. People are out here saying this has ended J. Cole's career. This puts a stain on Cole's career. No, it doesn't. If anything, it elevates his career. It elevates him. At least in the eyes of people that have principles. It elevates him in the eyes of people who are not your typical regular degular fans. Fair weather, typical hip hop consumers, they're not going to understand. They're not going to agree. And that's okay. Because they're immature to realize they're too immature to realize what they just witnessed. They're not healed. They're not elevated yet. Most of these dudes are the same guys that hate women and blame them for every goddamn thing that's wrong in their lives. They think that women owe them something. And the world owes them something because things have not been great for them in the ways that they want them. And so likewise, they feel entitled to see these two dudes possibly destroy each other under the guise of quote unquote friendly competition for hip hop. It hasn't been friendly competition. The fans have been decidedly unfriendly. This has been toxic. This is toxic for hip hop. The beef, that is. The apology is the first step towards healing it. Now, it remains to be seen what Kendrick's going to do. For my part, I hope Kendrick accepts J. Cole's apology. And I hope that they can not only reconcile, but do records together. I want to see that long-awaited Kendrick Cole project. I mean, I didn't necessarily think it was going to come into fruition when people said it was, all the way back 10 years ago. But I think there isn't a much better time than now for the two of them to at least do a record together. Or even a damn interview. They ain't got to even do no record together. A sit-down interview between the two of them would probably be one of the most viewed things on YouTube ever since Cat Williams this year. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's an opportunity for people to elevate. It's an opportunity for the culture to grow and learn how to apologize when it does wrong to people. We still have OGs in hip hop that have done wrong to people. Dr. Dre has beaten multiple women in abusive ways, including his ex-wife, ex-girlfriend, and even women that he wasn't romantically involved with. He has not apologized genuinely to those women yet, as far as I'm concerned. He released one of those half-assed, publicist created apologies that you have to do in order to repair your image. He didn't apologize because doing what he did was a violation of his principles. And it's not just Dre. It's Diddy. It's Russell. And when I say Russell, I mean Russell Simmons. It's a bunch of guys. Even Pharrell. You know what I'm saying? Like, all these dudes have done some dubious and outright devilish things to people on their way towards the top of success. And some of them act like the shit ain't even there. That boy Pharrell act like he ain't steal Khalees Publishing. He act like what she said didn't even happen or didn't exist. Why would she come out of the woodwork and say all that shit if it wasn't true? Now Pharrell's trying to steal the Neptunes from underneath his own damn partner, when he and everyone knows that they produced all those records together. Pharrell didn't produce that shit by himself. So why is he trying to get money, all the money for the Neptune shit for himself? You know what I'm saying? And I say this as a Pharrell fan. I say this as a fan of Dr. Dre's music. Dr. Dre's contribution to hip hop is indelible. But so far, both of them have done what the vast majority of men do when they're dead wrong. Not a motherfucking thing. And that is to the detriment of our young women. It's to the detriment of our boys. Because then they turn around and grow up to be men that do the same shit. See, it's not about being perfect out here. You can be imperfect. You can fuck up. But it's not about whether you do something wrong. It's about whether you stay wrong. It's about when you are wrong, do you try to correct the record Or do you double down? You know what I'm saying? If you were mistaken, do you try to fix it? Do you admit that you made a mistake and try to, fix what you messed up? Or do you pretend like the shit ain't happened? That's the ultimate question. And for far too many people, it's been the latter rather than the former. I appreciate J. Cole for doing his part to change that narrative and showing us how to do it through example in real time and not waiting until years after the damage has been done. You know what I'm saying? That makes hip hop better. That also makes masculinity better because it is very unmasculine to say, hey, or seemingly unmasculine to say, hey, I did something that didn't align with my spirit. I didn't like how this made me feel. I didn't like how my own actions made me feel. You know what I'm saying? That's not something that people say. That's not something that men say enough. You know what I mean? And if you're a young man out there listening to this, or even if you're not so young, understand, I ain't trying to chide nobody. And I'm not trying to pretend as though I'm some sort of savior. I have all the answers. I don't. I'm learning this shit just as I'm saying it. You know what I'm saying? But the point of the matter is we got to try. And when we see somebody do it publicly, we need to give them props and not chide them. We need to give them support and clairvoyance and grace rather than chide them and call them soft and make up stupid ass names. That's what we need to do. But J. Cole has once again demonstrated that he's ahead of the curve, man. He's ahead of the curve. Hip-hop fans need to learn to catch up. Particularly men. We got to catch up to them. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm being an optimist, and I'm hoping that everything he said as to why he's dropping the beef is true. If it turns out that it's not, and it turns out that Cole really was afraid, there's still a lesson to be gained from this. Still, do things that align with your principles, or align with principles that you aspire to. And when you do something that does not align with said principles, apologize. Apologize. All right? But with that being said, I'm out. Thank you for listening. Peace.